Some stories stay buried for decades, until something deep below decides it's time to surface. Tonight's story is about loyalty, justice, and the cruel silence that follows when truth is pushed underwater. In 1977, Officer Lila Granger, one of Montana's first female state troopers, vanished during a night shift on Highway 212. Her radio went dead in the middle of a call. Her patrol car was never found. For 16 long years, the people of Still Ford lived with a wound that wouldn't close, until a single fisherman's hook pulled up something that had been waiting patiently beneath the ice. Before we begin, please take a moment to support this channel. If you love real stories about missing people, cold cases, and forgotten truths that resurface after decades, like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. It helps us uncover more stories like this one, stories the world tried to forget. Now, let's return to that frozen Montana night in 1977. Wind against the patrol car. The faint squeal of snow under tires. A young woman's voice softly humming to a radio song. Narrator. In 1977, Montana was quieter. Roads were lonelier. And for Officer Lila Granger, that silence was her peace. At 28, Lila was one of only 4 female highway patrol officers in the entire state. She'd joined the force in 1975 after serving as a dispatcher in Still Ford County. Her father, Tom Granger, was a retired trucker, and her mother, Evelyn, worked as a librarian. Those who knew her described her as the calm in every storm. She rarely raised her voice, never cut corners, and carried herself with quiet pride. But being a woman in uniform in 1970s Montana wasn't easy. Many of her colleagues doubted her, some refused to ride along with her at all. Still, she showed up for every shift, usually volunteering for the late-night patrols no one else wanted. That's what she did on February 6, 1977, a bitterly cold Sunday night. She arrived at the Still Ford substation around 9:45 p.m., grabbed a thermos of coffee, and signed the logbook. Her route was simple, a 37-mile stretch of Highway 212 between Still Ford and Haven Creek, a quiet route with almost no traffic after midnight. At 1:41 a.m., she called dispatch. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Got a stalled vehicle at marker 47. I'll check it out." Her tone was calm, professional, nothing unusual. But when the dispatcher tried to check in 6 minutes later, there was no response. At 2:10 a.m., another patrol unit was sent to check the area. When they arrived, nothing. No car, no skid marks, no sign of Lila. Only snow and wind sweeping the asphalt clean. Her patrol unit, a 1976 Plymouth Fury, was gone too. The next morning, the search began. Helicopters scanned fields and frozen creeks. Dozens of volunteers combed the woods with dogs. But the snow had already buried any trace. All they found was a single glove, black leather, standard issue, about 300 yards from mile marker 47. Her name was stitched on the inside, L. Granger. And that was it. No one saw her again. Her father told the press 2 days later, "That road took my daughter, and it never gave her back." The state launched a full-scale investigation, one of the largest in Montana's history at the time. But the leads dried up as quickly as they came. No witnesses. No tire tracks. No radio transmissions. Every few days, rumors started. People claimed to see a patrol car near the canyon roads, or said they'd heard a woman screaming over the radio waves. None were ever confirmed. Then there were whispers about her personal life. Some said she'd been seeing someone on the force, secretly. Others believed she'd discovered something she wasn't supposed to. Investigators learned that Lila had been arguing with Deputy Alan Pierce, a senior officer who had been her mentor when she joined. He was married, in his late 40s, and known for his temper. Pierce told detectives that he'd spoken to Lila that night about a reckless driver report, but said he went home around midnight. His wife confirmed it. Yet there were discrepancies. His patrol log had time gaps, and his radio had been turned off for nearly an hour. Still, no physical evidence linked him to her disappearance. Weeks turned to months. By the summer of 1977, her case had turned cold. The department quietly reduced the search budget, and eventually the FBI pulled out. The community, however, didn't stop caring. Locals left flowers at Marker 47 every February. The Granger family set up a small billboard reading, "Where is Officer Lila Granger?" In 1981, her parents petitioned to have her officially declared deceased, but they refused to hold a funeral. "No coffin," her father said. "Not until I know." As years passed, the mystery hardened into legend. Truckers reported seeing flashing lights near the marker at night, one flash of blue, then nothing. They started calling it the ghost shift. It was March 2, 1993, a bitterly cold morning at Clearwind Lake, 12 miles north of Highway 212. Local fisherman Raymond Locke, a retired mechanic, had come early to set up his line along the shallow side of the lake. Around 7:30 a.m., his line snagged something heavy. He tugged, assuming it was a branch, but it didn't move. When he leaned over the ice, he saw something faintly metallic under the water, dark, squared edges. At first, he thought it was an old dock frame. But when the sun hit the surface, he saw it, a police light bar still attached to a rusted roof. Within hours, the lake was surrounded by emergency vehicles. The county recovery team began working to pull the vehicle up from the icy depths. It took nearly 6 hours. As the winch lifted the car, the front grille emerged, faded blue paint, cracked headlights, and a badge number still visible beneath the grime. MHP 1207. Lila Granger's patrol car. Inside was a skeleton in the driver's seat, seatbelt still fastened. Her service revolver lay beside her, unfired. Her badge was found on the floor near the pedals. The lake had been covering her secret for 16 long years. But it wasn't an accident. Forensic experts noticed the car's gear was in neutral, not drive. The windows were rolled down, as though someone else had been behind the wheel. The autopsy confirmed Lila had died from blunt force trauma, a fractured skull, not consistent with an accident. When investigators drained more of the lake, they found a second license plate near the submerged car, belonging to a green 1976 Dodge pickup once registered to Deputy Alan Pierce. The past was finally beginning to speak. News of the discovery shook Still Ford to its core. Reporters returned. Old detectives came out of retirement. And in Idaho, where Alan Pierce had quietly moved after retiring in 1989, police came knocking. At first, Pierce denied everything. He said he'd sold that pickup years before Lila disappeared. But when investigators showed him photos of the license plate recovered from the lake, he went pale. Forensic tests confirmed that his fingerprints, and Lila's, were both found inside her recovered patrol car. Confronted with the evidence, Pierce changed his story. He told investigators that Lila had radioed him for backup that night. When he arrived, she was already dead. He said he panicked, afraid that being the last to see her alive would ruin his career, so he pushed her car into the lake. But investigators weren't buying it. There were no crash marks, no blood consistent with an accident. The coroner found bruising patterns matching a flashlight strike, a weapon Pierce had been issued at the time. In late 1993, Pierce was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The courtroom in Still Ford filled to capacity every day. Lila's parents sat in the front row, holding hands, silent. The prosecution laid out their evidence. His fingerprints on her door handle. His truck plate at the lake. Radio logs showing he went off duty the same time she vanished. Witnesses recalling arguments between the two at a diner days before her disappearance. Finally, one retired trooper testified that Pierce had confided years earlier, "If you dig deep enough in Stillford, you'll find bones." The defense tried to argue that the confession was coerced, but it didn't matter. After a 6-week trial, the jury found Alan Pierce guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole on November 19, 1994. During sentencing, Lila's father stood and said quietly, "For 16 years, she was frozen in that water. But she never left her post. She stayed where her duty was, until truth brought her home." The courtroom fell silent. Even the judge's voice cracked when he read the final ruling. Today, at mile marker 47, there's a small white cross with the number 307 carved into it, Lila's badge number. Truckers still honk as they pass, especially at night. Some swear they see a faint flash of blue light reflected in the snowbanks, just for a second, before it disappears. Locals call it Lila's Patrol. Her story became part of Montana training history, the first cold case in state police records solved by recovered vehicle evidence from a frozen lake. And every February, her parents visit Clearwind Lake. Her mother once told a reporter, "The ice hid her, but it also kept her safe. When it melted, it gave her back." Narrator, gentle, solemn tone. It took 16 years for a lake to speak. 16 winters for silence to thaw into truth. Officer Lila Granger's story reminds us that justice doesn't always arrive quickly, but it always arrives. If stories like this matter to you, please like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. It helps us keep these forgotten names alive. And to Officer Lila Granger, you are no longer lost beneath the ice.